be talking to you about how to protect everything you've worked so hard to accumulate without having to give up too much control. Now, most of the speeches I give, I talk to you about ways that you don't have to give up control. But in order to protect from Medicaid and veterans benefits, you're going to have to give up some control. But this is also an area where it's a really good idea for you to put together a plan as soon as possible. Because the sooner you do it and the further away you are from needing care, the more control you can maintain. So what you're going to discover today is ways to protect your assets in the event you need long-term care. Now, this is an area that none of us ever want to need. So my other speeches are on who gets your stuff when you die, and it's hard enough for us to admit that we might die someday. But a harder question is, what if you need care? What if you need people to help you get through everyday life? How do we protect assets for that? How to make sure your needs are taken care of? This is for you if you're worried about losing your assets if you ever have to go to a nursing home. If you're confused by the conflicting advice, because one of the things about Medicaid is it's actually a federal program that's administered on a state level. Every state does it a little bit different. So if you're searching on the internet for advice regarding Medicaid, you're going to get a lot of conflicting advice because the rules are different depending on where you live. This is also an area that Congress makes a lot of changes to. And so if you're getting advice from somebody who had their mother go on Medicaid 2 or 3 years ago, the advice is going to be different than how things are done today. And if you're afraid of outliving your money, and that's actually the most common fear of older adults, is that they're going to outlive their money. And it's actually a pretty valid fear. We actually spend in the last 6 months of our life more in healthcare than we do in our entire lifetime. So imagine having the peace of mind knowing your assets are protected and having a plan customized to your unique family situation. So we have 3 locations. We can meet with you at any of those locations. We have an office in Bartonville, an office in Aubrey, and an office in Denton. We can also meet with you through a video conference. So that way we're able to get to know you, get to know your family, and put together a plan. Let me tell you a little bit about our firm before I get started. We've helped over 6,000 families protect the assets that they leave to their loved ones from divorce, creditors, and lawsuits. We've also helped over 300 families implement the plans that we've designed. And why that's important to you is because for most of you, this is kind of a depressing conversation. So you're going to want to put together a plan, put it on the shelf, and forget about it. But what's important to you is you're taken care of if something happens, and your family is taken care of. Our firm is unique in the fact that we do both estate planning and elder law. So elder law is what we're going to be talking about today. That's the Medicaid and veterans benefits. We also do estate planning, which is the who gets your stuff when you die. And putting those two together allows us to plan for the full continuum of care, depending on what stage you are in life as far as assets. Our firm also belongs to a lot of professional organizations, and the advantage of that to you is you get the experience of not only the 4 attorneys in our office, but other attorneys nationwide. Because as I said earlier, Medicaid is a national program administered on a state level. Texas tends to make the changes, we're a late adopter, we tend to make the changes later than other states. So we're able to learn from what happens in the other states and pre-plan for those changes as they come into our state. So I have 3 books, and if you're interested in getting them, you can contact our office. The first one is my most popular book, which is the Who Gets Your Stuff When You Die. I actually just recently put it on Amazon, so if you want to buy it there, you can, or you can ask for a copy from our office. We also have 2 others that are entitled You're Not Alone. One is Living with Alzheimer's Disease, the other is Living as an Alzheimer's Caregiver. So what if everything you've been told about how to pay for nursing home costs is wrong? So if you go to an attorney that doesn't really do elder law, one of the things they may tell you is just spend every dime of what you have, and when you're totally broke, we'll help you get on Medicaid. But what I'm going to talk to you about today is there's lots of ways we can protect your assets so that you have money to take care of yourself and you have money to pass on to your family. For married couples, most of the time we can protect all of your assets. So your assets are available to take care of you and able to take care of your spouse. If you're a single person, we can usually protect about half of the assets, but we'll go through a lot of ways that we can do that protection. So I told you, medical costs in the last 6 months of people's lives tend to eat up most of their assets. And one of the kind of scary statistics is the amount it costs to be cared for. So to be cared for in a nursing home, average in our area, is $96,000 a year. Now, a person with Alzheimer's, their average stay in a nursing home is 8 years. So if you had Alzheimer's, stayed for just the average time, you're spending close to $800,000 on your care. Now, most of us, if we get asked, we would actually rather be cared for in the home. And to be cared for in the home 24 hours a day can cost $180,000 a year. So that eats through a substantial amount of assets. So the other thing that a lot of people get told by financial advisors is you have more than enough money and you don't need to worry about planning for Medicaid. But what if your spouse has Alzheimer's, they spend 8 years in the nursing home, and if you think about it, they're going to have been cared for in the home for a number of years prior to that. So what if your spouse needs care and that care costs $1 million? What are you going to live on for the rest of your life? And then what if in the future you need care? So how much would you have to have in assets to cover the potential costs of long-term care? So life is unpredictable. You can have an accident, a stroke, Alzheimer's. There's lots of reasons why people need care. And we can't fully protect against that happening, but we can plan for how to protect assets and to make sure that you're taken care of. So I'm going to talk to you about 2 categories of planning. One is pre-planning. So pre-planning is you don't think you're going to need care in the next 5 years, but you want to protect your assets if you ever need it in the future. Crisis planning is you need care now, and we're trying to figure out how to protect the assets that you have. And like I said earlier, if we're in the pre-planning stage, you can maintain a lot more control, and then we can do a lot more protection for the assets. As we get further into crisis planning, you're going to lose some of that ability to have control. So with pre-planning, the first level is when you don't think you're going to have a need anytime in the future for long-term care, and you don't have any sort of diagnosis that shows that you're on a path where you're going to need it. So the first thing to look at is long-term care insurance. Now, traditional long-term care insurance, where you pay premiums and they agree to pay for care if you need it, is pretty much going away. And the reason why it is because the cost of care is going up so much and people are still living dramatically longer. And so for the insurance companies, it hasn't been profitable to do long-term care insurance. So what most companies do, and actually the better products anyway, are what they call hybrid programs. So hybrid programs are you pay money. If you need long-term care, the insurance company pays a portion of that care. In the event you never need care, your family gets paid a death benefit when you pass away. That's what I have. So I have a policy that if I ever need care, pays my family a certain amount a month to take care of me. But if I never ever need care, which is how I would like to plan it, so if I never ever need care, my family gets something when I pass away. The other nice thing about those is those are actually easier policies to get than long-term care policies. Because what they're looking at is what is the risk that you're going to pass away, not what is the risk that you're going to need long-term care. So I have a client right now that's working with a financial advisor that I work with. They have about $250,000 in retirement plans. And that financial advisor is helping them take that $250,000 and actually convert it into a plan that provides both the life insurance and the long-term care. The particular policy actually provides about $6,000 a month that can be used towards care. So if you don't already have a policy in place and you don't have somebody to help you with it, I would love to make that introduction. Other thing to do further back, just in case you need care in the future, is we might want to revise your wills to include what we call a supplemental needs trust. And this is more for the situation where you and your spouse feel like you're fine as long as you're both around, you're going to be able to stay home. But in the event one of you was to pass away and the other was to need care, you want to protect money. And so what we do is we actually say that if one of you passes away, all the money goes to the survivor, but it goes in the supplemental needs trust, and then all of that money is protected. The government doesn't require it be spent prior to you going on Medicaid. This is definitely a good idea if one of you have a diagnosis that requires that you need care, so your spouse is needing to take care of you, and as long as they're around, you're able to stay home. But in the event they were gone, you might need care. And so that's a way to kind of protect on that. I have some couples that do it because they just figure by the time their spouse passes away, they're going to probably be at the stage of life of needing care. Other important thing to do, even if you don't think you're going to need care in the future, but definitely in the pre-planning, is to update your financial power of attorney to allow for future planning and gifting. So if you use the standard form power of attorney, it doesn't actually give authority to do planning for Medicaid and VA benefits. Because a good portion of that planning is we have to have you give up control, which requires you to gift assets into trusts. And a standard form power of attorney, the statutory power of attorney, the form you can get on the internet, doesn't give your family authority to do that. But in order to do this planning, we've got to have authority in the financial power of attorney to do this type of gifting. So what we do for our clients is we give you that standard form statutory short one, because occasionally you run into banks that want to see them. But we also prepare a 30-page financial power of attorney that covers everything we can think of you would need a power of attorney for, which includes the ability to plan for Medicaid and for VA benefits. So if you have an estate plan that was not done by our firm, it's worth having our firm update your plan, including this financial power of attorney. Now there's a look back for gifting. So in the event you need care and you need to go on Medicaid or on the type of VA benefits I'm going to talk to you about in a minute, there's a look back on it. So for Medicaid, they look back and they say in the last 5 years, or actually they phrase it as 60 months, in the last 60 months have you given away anything? And when they ask you have you given away anything, they mean anything. They want every gift over $50. Now there is a rule for estate taxes that you can give away $15,000 per person per year. But Medicaid is looking for people giving away any amount of money. So in the event you give away money to plan for Medicaid, or for VA benefits I'm going to talk to you about in a minute, that's a 3-year look back. I highly recommend that you put it in a trust to protect it. And I've always recommended that, but let me tell you a story of somebody who didn't take my advice. I had a lady come in, she had $500,000. She wanted to give the $500,000 to her son and daughter-in-law to hold and protect for her, just in case she needed long-term care. So she wrote a check out to the son and daughter-in-law, and I had recommended that she put it in a trust. But when I talked to her about it, she said, my son is a good, responsible person. I know for sure he's going to take care of me. And I said, okay, well, if he dies, will his wife take care of you? Oh, yeah, they've been married 30 years. My daughter-in-law is the most wonderful woman. I know she would take care of me. And I said, well, okay, well, if something happens to both of them, will your 2 grandsons take care of you? She's like, oh, yeah, I've got wonderful grandsons. They'll take good care of me. I have no doubt in my mind that I'll be taken care of. So I'm just going to write the check to them directly. And that worked out okay until the daughter-in-law met the man of her dreams. And the man of her dreams happened to not be this lady's son. So she actually went to her husband and said, I've met the man of my dreams. I'm going to go start my new life with him with the $250,000 that your mom gave me. And there was nothing the son could do to stop her from taking the money. And there was nothing that the mother could do to stop her from taking the money. If instead the mother had put the money in a trust, put the son in charge of it, it would have been clear that it was her money and there to take care of her. So in order to qualify for Medicaid, will you need to sell the family home? And this is one of the things that's kind of tricky with Medicaid. So with Medicaid, the house is exempt up to a certain number. And it's a pretty large value that you can do as far as giving away a house or having a house be in your name. But what Medicaid does is when you pass away, they send a letter to your family, and the letter actually starts with the words, sorry for your loss. And the reason why it starts with sorry for your loss is they got criticized for sending the letter without at least saying sorry for your loss. But the rest of the letter is exactly the same. So during your loved one's lifetime, we spent $300,000 on their care, and we'd like to be paid back. And so we're going to put a lien on the house that they owned. And if you haven't worked with an attorney to protect the house, when your loved one passes away, Medicaid is going to be able to take or get reimbursed out of the value of the house for the care that's been provided. Now, we can prepare an enhanced life estate deed, also called a ladybird deed. It's a deed where you keep your house for life. On your death, it automatically goes to who you want it to go to. Then Medicaid doesn't attach it with a lien, and that money doesn't have to be paid back. So even if you have it A family member that has almost no assets, doesn't need help getting on Medicaid, house is exempt, still worth working with an attorney to make sure that the house is protected even into the future. But this is also an area where watching what other states are doing is something that we can talk about doing a better plan. So in 40 of the states right now, not Texas, but 40 other states, if you apply for Medicaid and you have a family home and you don't have a spouse living in it, they actually require the house be sold and that money be used to pay for your care. Because what they're looking at is you're not going to need the house anymore if you're having to live in long-term care. So because of that, what we're talking to our clients about is in setting up a trust so that your assets are protected just in case you need to have Medicaid in the future, we're talking to you about going ahead and putting the family home in there. And we can put language in there that still preserves your homestead exemption on the house. It also still preserves the fact that you don't pay capital gains tax if you choose to sell the house. But if we have it in the trust and it's in the trust more than 5 years, then the house doesn't have to be sold to pay for your care, even if Texas changes the rules in the future. So for VA benefits, same question, will you need to sell the family home? VA now allows you to have a house and 2 acres. So if you have more than 2 acres of land and you're trying to qualify for VA benefits, you're not going to be able to do it with that extra land. So if you have more than 2 acres, so if you have a family farm that you want to make sure passes down beyond you, and you think you might need care in the future, it's worth talking about transferring it to the trust. Now the other advantage for both VA and Medicaid of putting the house in the trust, house and land in the trust, is in the event you need care and you're no longer living in the home, if it's inside the trust, your family can actually sell the house and then use the money for your care. If we did it the old way where you kept the house in your name and we did the enhanced life estate deed or the ladybird deed, your family, if they sell the home, that's going to throw you off of the Medicaid benefits. So this allows more flexibility regarding the house. It could also allow them to rent it out and get income from it while you're in the home. So second type of planning, crisis planning. So crisis planning is you've fallen and broken a hip, you're in rehab, you're getting ready to have to go into skilled nursing. How do we protect assets in the crisis? Now I told you at the beginning, if you're a married couple and we're doing the crisis planning, so at the time of the crisis we're trying to make sure we have as much assets as possible to take care of the spouse at home, we're usually able to protect most of your assets. But you need an attorney involved, and there's a lot of strategies around doing that. If you're a single person, there's a lot of legitimate things that you can spend money on, which I'll go through in a minute, that are going to have to be paid for anyway, like your funeral. But there's some other ways that we can end up protecting about half of the money. Now the question I get a lot of times with this is if I'm single and I'm in the nursing home and the government's paying for all my care, why do I need to protect assets at all? The type of care you're going to get on Medicaid is not the type of care you're going to want. So in a nursing home, the care is 1 caregiver to 40 people. If you've protected part of your money, you can actually pay for extra care. You're also going to be in a semi-private room, which in this area means you're going to have 1 roommate. And so you can pay for a private room. If you're in the Houston area, you're actually in there with 3 roommates. So it's 4 to a room. So you're definitely going to want to pay for a private room if you've got the money to do it. So is VA benefit planning only for the poor? So VA benefits and Medicaid benefits really are designed for people that don't have enough assets to pay for their own care. But as I told you earlier, the cost of care is so great that even if you have a lot of assets, is there going to be money left over for your spouse to be taken care of? And are you going to want care beyond what Medicaid pays for? And if so, protecting the assets makes sense for that. The very first lady I helped her husband get on Medicaid was a lady who her husband and her had accumulated over their lifetime $300,000. They were living in an independent living apartment, and they were spending about $3,000 a month on their household expenses. Husband had a stroke, ended up in the nursing home, and so she was paying $8,000 a month for the nursing home. And under the current rules at the time, she was allowed to keep about $100,000. So if she hadn't hired an attorney to help her get her husband on Medicaid, what would have happened is she would have had to spend down all their money down to $100,000. Then Medicaid would have picked up that $8,000 a month bill. And then out of the $100,000, she would have had about 3 or 4 years of money for her to live on. And then what? So we were actually able to do some strategies, make it where she was able to keep all of the $300,000, have her husband get on Medicaid, and have it be protected. Now, I told you earlier, a lot of financial advisors will say, you have more than enough money, we don't need to worry about long-term care. Let me tell you about the lady that I helped get on Medicaid that actually had the most assets I've ever done that for. Her husband was in the nursing home in skilled nursing. He had sundowner syndrome, which meant that he had these nightmares and he would try to run from things. And usually with sundowners, it's just a certain time of day that it starts happening, but he would sleep on and off throughout the day. And so he kept falling and breaking bones. And the nursing home couldn't have a person just sitting beside his bed all day because they're caring for 39 other people. So this lady actually was paying somebody to sit beside his bed and make sure he stayed safe. So she's paying $15,000 a month to the person sitting beside the bed, plus she's paying $8,000 a month to the nursing home. Now they had substantial assets, but at $22,000 a month, and if he did stay in the nursing home 8 years, you're talking about bleeding through millions of dollars, or over $1 million. So what money was she going to have to live on? And what if she needed care in the future? So we were actually able to get her husband on Medicaid. So Medicaid picked up the $8,000 a month bill. She was still paying for somebody to sit beside his bed and make sure he stayed safe. So she still had that expense. And then, of course, she actually lived a very long time after that and needed money for her care in the future. So it's a way to look at as far as how do we make sure that you're protected and your loved ones are protected in the event they need care. So I'm going to talk to you really briefly about public benefits for long-term care. Veteran benefits, I'm going to talk about improved pension and improved death pension. Medicaid, it's for the elderly and people with disabilities. So 2021, we have new numbers for the maximum monthly reimbursement award. There's 2 categories. Aid and attendance means you need help from somebody else to do the activities of daily living. Housebound means you don't leave the house without somebody going with you. So housebound doesn't mean you never leave the house. It pretty much just means you never drive yourself anywhere. So aid and attendance, there's 3 different levels of aid and attendance. If you're married, it's $22.95 a month. If you're single, it's $19.36. And if you're a widow, it's $12.44. If you're housebound, you don't leave the house without the aid of somebody else, it's a little bit less. It's $17.78 a month if you're married. If you're single, it's $14.18. And if you're a widow, it's $9.51. So let me talk to you a little bit about the eligibility to qualify for it. You have to have served 90 days of active duty, 1 day during a defined period of war. And Congress actually has defined these dates. They're kind of random, especially with conflicts like Vietnam. They've picked a time period that they're going to cover as far as being a defined period of war. So what you need to do is locate the original or a certified copy of your DD-214, of your discharge papers, so that you can look at the dates and see if they qualify. You don't have to have left the United States. You don't actually have to have been in combat, but you have to have been in active duty during a period that they define as a period of war. If you don't have a copy of your discharge papers, it's worth finding one or requesting one from your local county VA office, because it can take over a year to get an actual copy of it. And there's actually a period of time where they actually had some records burned down. And so because of that, if you served during those periods of time, it's even harder to get a copy of those discharge papers. But the VA benefit doesn't start until they have those discharge papers, so it's much better to get it ahead of time than to get it when you actually need the benefit. There's 2 levels of medical necessity. I already kind of mentioned them to you. The first is housebound. You don't leave the house without the help of somebody else. If you have a family member who's driving but should not be driving because they can't really drive safe, one of the ways you might be able to get them to stop driving is to tell them that they can get this benefit if they allow others to drive them around. Second level is aid and attendance. So you need the help from somebody else to do the activities of daily living. So there's a net worth maximum, and they just recently put in a 3-year look back for giving away assets. That was enacted October 18th of 2018. So anything given away prior to that date, after that date counts against you. And then once we get further along, it'll just be a 3-year look back. The maximum net worth is $130,772, but it's calculated kind of weird. It's your assets plus your annual income less your medical expenses. They don't consider your house plus 2 acres, your car, life insurance, pre-need funeral plans, and personal belongings within reason. So your personal belongings can't be a stockpile of diamonds or gold. They've got to be reasonable things. So like I told you, there is a 3-year look back, and that started October 18th of 2018. So anything given after that date counts as an asset that you still have. So the income maximums are the exact same numbers I just showed you a second ago. So it's your income you have coming in minus recurring medical expenses. When they drop below these numbers, then you get a benefit. And really, once they drop below these numbers by even $1, you get $1 of benefit, and it's worth trying to find other ways to spend money on care. So one of the nice things about the VA benefit is it can help the caregiver from getting too exhausted. Because if you can pay for somebody to come in the home and help a few hours, it can make a big difference in the quality of the caregiver's life. So you can also, with this, you can pay a family member, anybody other than your spouse, to take care of you. So Medicaid. So for Medicaid, you have to have a medical need for care. So it can't just be that you're homeless and you need somebody to pay for you to live somewhere. You've got to have a reason for them to help you. It pays for the nursing home costs, and there's a way to get community-based Medicaid. Now, community-based means you don't live in a nursing home or skilled nursing, so it'll pay for in-home care, it'll pay for care in a facility that's not skilled nursing. It has a very long waiting list. It's over a year. And at the point you need care, there's still an application, and they're a little bit stricter about giving away assets or transferring away assets, so it's a little harder to get on community-based care. Now, one of the things that sometimes people will qualify for, we call it the money follows the person. If you're in skilled nursing, you get on Medicaid, and then you get discharged and go home, you still get the Medicaid benefit once you go home. And that's an option as far as planning, but you will have to live in skilled nursing for at least 4 months in order to fully get you onto Medicaid. You don't have to be poor to get on Medicaid because many of the assets are exempt, and I'll go through those in just a second. And there's generous protections of both income and assets for the healthy community spouse, the one that's not living in the nursing home. Too many people assume they will qualify or they won't qualify. Now, I told you about the lady that had a lot of money, and her husband was in the nursing home and she was paying for a private caregiver. She had enough money that most people, when they looked at her assets, would have told you that she had too much money to qualify. But if you're looking long term, how much care is her husband going to need, and then how much care is she going to need in her lifetime, they really didn't have too much money. But the other category is the people that assume that they will qualify. So nursing homes, a good portion of the time, will do you a favor and fill out the application if they think you don't have enough assets to be disqualified from Medicaid. But the problem is, when you apply for Medicaid, Medicaid doesn't tell you yes or no for 3 months. And the rules are, if you have too much in assets in any 1 month, midnight of the first day, that entire month you don't get benefits. So let me give you an example. We had a lady whose mom had a life insurance policy. Now, this life insurance policy she had had most of her lifetime, and it happened to have a cash value of $3,000. So her mom is at this point single, in a nursing home, and the nursing home does her mom a favor by filling out the application. And what they're looking at is when you look at this lady's bank account, she doesn't have much money. She has Social Security coming in, Social Security going out, but not very much money. And so because of that, when the nursing home looked at it, she was well below the $2,000 she's allowed to have. So they fill out the application for her, send it off to Medicaid, and 3 months later, Medicaid says you have too much money because we've looked in the database and we see that you have $3,000 in cash value in this life insurance. So you and I, being logical people, would say all that needs to happen is that $1,000 of that policy needs to be paid for her care, and then she should qualify, and it should go backwards. But the way Medicaid does the world is she didn't qualify for those 3 months. She still doesn't qualify in the month they notified her, so meaning she doesn't qualify for 4 months. At $8,000 a month, that's $32,000 in a bill from the nursing home that the family is going to have to pay. And then we've still got to get that $1,000 spent, or a little bit over, so we can get it below the $2,000 number, and then she can go on Medicaid. So she's lost the 4 months, plus she's lost whatever she has to spend, and then she can finally be on Medicaid. So if you have a nursing home apply for you, just be extra sure there's not some asset out there that's going to cause you to not be qualified. I'm also in a minute going to talk to you about something called a qualified income trust, because there's an income number you can't go over. And so we have situations where nursing homes apply for people and they've gone over the income number by a couple dollars, which is fixable, and I'll show you how in just a minute. But if it doesn't get fixed, every month it's not fixed, you don't qualify either. The other thing is, remember I told you a while back about the house and how we can make sure that Medicaid doesn't put a lien against the house when you're gone. If a nursing home helps you apply, yes, the house is exempt, yes, you get on Medicaid, but your family is going to end up having to reimburse the cost of your care out of the value of your home. So the maximum income for an applicant is $23.82 per month. For some reason, and I don't even know why the government does this, they make us kind of do a shell game if you have more than that. Because average cost of a nursing home per month is $8,000. So even if you have more than that $23.82, you're not going to have enough money to pay for your care. So what they have us do is they have us put all of your income. So let's just say you get $3,000 a month from Social Security. They put all of the $3,000 a month comes into this qualified income trust, and $60 comes out to you as a personal needs allowance, because that's all they think you need for personal things. The rest of the money goes to the nursing home to take care of the nursing home bill, and then you qualify for Medicaid. But if we don't have you put the money in the trust and then have it go out the way I just said, you don't qualify. So if the nursing home has applied for you and you have this extra money, which if you think about it, it's not that much money per month, not enough to pay for your care, you don't qualify for Medicaid in that month. Now, I just recently had a client really want to set up a qualified income trust now, even though she's not in a facility. No reason to do that, and really if we did, she would be somewhat signing up to giving all of her income to the nursing home when she didn't need the care. Now there's protected income for the community spouse. That's the spouse at home, the one that's not in the nursing home, and it's the greater of 100% of what they earn, or the combined income up to $32.59 per month. So if the spouse at home doesn't make that amount of money, we can actually shift income from the spouse in the nursing home, and that spouse gets to keep it. Or if the spouse earns more than the $32.59, they can keep all of that money. Protected resources, if you're single, it's $2,000 in liquid assets, a house, a car, personal belongings, and we can do funerals on both you and other people in your family, and we can talk through how to do that. For the community spouse, so once a married person gets on Medicaid, they have to have below the $2,000 in their name. But the spouse, they're allowed to keep liquid assets, and it's a range. It's between, the minimum is $26,076, maximum is $130,380. And what we do is we actually take all of your assets, divide the value in half, and we look to see where it fits in this range. If you have less than that $26,076, then you get to keep your assets up to that value. But there's a lot of strategies we can use to protect a lot more assets. So for some of you who have done no planning, you're probably wondering what the next steps are. And for some of you who have already done some planning, in light of our discussion, you may be wondering, should I be doing more? We meet with our clients every 3 years, and part of the purpose of that meeting is to talk about whether we need to do planning for Medicaid and VA benefits. So that way we can do a checkup in time, see how you're doing health-wise, see if we need to have more of a discussion or do more advanced planning in how we put things together. So where do you go from here? Most of you not planning on needing long-term care, you're going to end up procrastinating. So what's the difference between salad and garbage if they're made of exactly the same thing? And the answer to that's timing. So the sooner you do planning, the more options we have. So the next step with our office is what we call a family legacy planning session. Now in this picture, this is a picture of the 4 attorneys in our office. The lady in the red jacket, her name is Cassidy. That's who you're going to meet with regarding Medicaid and VA benefits. She's been helping our clients for a number of years get both of these benefits. So how it works is it's a 30-minute meeting with Cassidy. It's either by phone or video conference or in person, however you want to do it. In that meeting, she's going to get to know your family and your situation. There's no charge for that initial meeting with Cassidy. At the end of your time with her, she's going to give you the option to hire us to create a customized plan. So she'll quote you a price to actually do an analysis of your assets and your income and your situation. And there'll be a fixed price for that analysis. At the meeting after that, she's going to schedule a time to discuss this customized plan. And she's going to discuss the next steps that need to be taken to protect your assets. And at that time, she'll quote you fixed prices depending on what plan you need to implement. So call our office to book that family legacy planning session. And you've really done the hardest part, thinking through the fact that something bad might happen in the future and thinking how to protect yourself and how to protect your family. That's the first step, and we'll be able to go from there.